everyone, it's Cass. Welcome back to my channel, What Cass Read. Today I'm going to bring you my spoiler-free review of Mage's Blood, written by David Hare. Mage's Blood is the first book in a fantasy series written by David Hare called The Moontide Quartet. It follows a number of different characters. It merges lots of different worlds, lots of different cultures into this very massive undertaking of a book inside one novel. So let's get to it. So the world of Mage's Blood is split into two different continents. We have the continent of Euros and we have the continent of Antioquia. Two different, vastly different continents, an eastern continent and a western continent. And there is a bridge that goes between the two, and every 12 years, the waters surrounding the bridge, the tide recedes, allowing the bridge to stay above water, and the two different continents go to war and they clash with one another. This event is called the Moontide. It happens every 12 years, and this book follows the events leading up to the Moontide. We follow different characters caught in the middle of this on both sides of the continent. We are starting 1 year before the Moontide, and we've got the events leading right up directly to the Moontide and when that new battle begins. So this book, I want to talk about the world building, but it is just so hard to talk about the world building because there's a lot that David Hare has done for this world and smooshed it all into one book. We follow lots of different customs and cultures within this story. We follow a lot of different characters and all of the different characters that surround these characters, and the different prejudices that happen amongst these different societies. We have political hierarchies, we have magical hierarchies, we have royal hierarchies, and we have these three characters just trying to make it through. The one thing that I have to say about this world is that it is very closely modeled after our world. Euros would be the European continent, Antioquia would be the Asian continent, and within these different continents it draws very heavy inspiration from the Mediterranean, from the Middle Eastern societies, and then from our typical, I think it's like a Northern European, they talk about mountainous regions. So I just got a very different mountain vibe than I would from, say, like your standard, I guess, English vibe. It's just that the scope for this is so large. There's just a lot that it's trying to contain in these pages, and trying to remember all of the different historical reasons why these people don't agree with one another was a pretty big part of the world building. But like I said, since it took so much inspiration from our current world, you could kind of follow along with it in that sense. Like if you have just a little bit of world history under your belt, not even a lot, just a little bit of world history under your belt, it'll give you a good indication of what the inspiration was for these different continents. Now, where the things get leveled up are the magic and the different fighting styles. So the magic in here follows a very specific coded system of the Magi. In the myth of this world, there were 300 individuals who were blessed with this magic, and they are pure-blooded Magi. And then as events have like trickled down through the ages, then you get half-blood, quarter-blood, 1/16 blood, and depending upon your lineage in this magical world determines like your standing amongst the magic users. So one of the characters that we follow, I'll talk about in a minute a little bit, he is going to an academy to learn about all of the different magics, and he, I believe, is a quarter blood. He is going to an academy to learn about all the different magics, and within this academy setting, we don't stay there for very long, but we do get a good sense of where the different hierarchies lie. And then because there's people who are pure-blooded or half-blooded or whatever, the different politics of the world. We've got governors, we've got soldiers who align their interests to these pure-blooded Magi because it serves them well in the future. I did really like that. The magic system, it does, again, it takes a lot of guts to attempt this kind of magic system in a book, because it covers like pretty much any kind of magic that you could think of, because each of the Magi, when they're learning the different magics, can favor one magic over the other, but all of them learn all of the properties of magic. So any one Magi could perform lots of different types of magic, even if their preferred type of magic is something completely opposite. So I can't even list them all. There's just simple things where you're doing elemental magic, but it could go all the way to controlling of spirits, necromancy, and sorcery, things like that. So it covers a lot of different things all within one system because these original 300 were blessed with just such immense power. The use of these magics in this world does tend to reside only within the continent of Euros. The continent of Antiopeia does tend to be vastly against this magic system because of their religious beliefs and because of their personal beliefs. So they tend to think that the Magi are, you know, sorcerous devils, and they shun that kind of magic from their life. There's just so many reasons why these different continents could be going to battle at any given time because of their histories with one another, because of the magic, or because of their gods, or their religion, or anything like that. And there's just, again, so much to cover in this world building. It is pretty easy to follow, though. Like, despite the fact that I feel like I'm not even explaining it that well, I do feel like as you're reading it, it is pretty easily digestible. Let's talk about the characters. That is, I think, how we can best tackle this book and explain this book and start feeling a little bit more at home inside this world. So the first character that we follow along with that I want to talk about is Alaron. He is a young teenage boy. He is our mage in training, going to the academy. And he resides in Neuros, in Neurostein, in the continent of Euros. So that's where I got, you know, some of these language clues. That's where I got some Northern European mountainous, I think maybe more Scandinavian Viking influences, but I'm not entirely sure. It was still pretty ambiguous. But anyways, he is the young man that we are following and learning about the different magic system among the Magi. He is in his final year at the academy, and he has to take his mage's tests, his mage's trials. And the cool thing that I liked about these mage's trials is you have to have a thesis as well. So it does seem very academic. Not only are you demonstrating your ability to perform the different types of magic, you must have a thesis that must be like a new contribution to magic. Much like if you were defending a dissertation or defending a master's thesis, because there is a panel that asks you questions about it and people can watch and all that good stuff. So I did like that part. He has like one friend that he has made. He's got a female companion. He's got the pure-blooded bullies in his school. He's got a very powerful mother, but she's really, really crazy. He's got a father who used to fight for the continent of Euros, and he was a part of the last crusade during the Moontide. He wants to live up to his parents and their power. So we've got his cast of characters that we follow along with. His main plot line is going to be the plot line that moves through school. Then when he submits his thesis, he does make a discovery that people don't want to get out. So that's where he and his storyline take us through the Moontide. So we have this former mercenary named Elena, and she ends up being she's a former mercenary who works for the royal Nesti family. I think they're the Nesti people. But it's this society that reminds me of the Mediterranean, maybe some Spanish Mediterranean, some Italian Mediterranean, and they're very close to the Leviathan Bridge. They kind of are right smack dab in that middle-ish area, but they are a part of the continent of Antiopeia. So Elena is a previous mercenary who used to work for this group of mercenaries who did service for the Emperor of Euros. She finds herself, having been tasked of watching over this royal family, really falling in love with this family and falling in love with this way of life. It's less rigid, and it's just a lot more freeing. And when tragedy strikes this royal family, she must make a choice between whether or not she's going to follow along with this mercenary band that she's been with for a long time, or continue to protect the royal family, and that ends up being her choice. She is also a mage as well. So unlike Alaron, who is our mage in training, she is a full-blown mage, so we do get to explore a lot of the different magic powers that she has, and particularly like their kind of like telepathy powers, their powers of spying across long distances, and battle tactics and that sort of thing. So she's a really fun character to follow along with, and that cast of characters and all of her personal vendettas or her past romantic relationships, her current budding romantic relationship. Then our next character that we follow along with, she might have been my favorite And this is our desert Middle Eastern fantasy setting where we follow Ramita, who belongs to this tribe, this rural tribe of people. The legend of her tribe is that her family is very, very fertile. All the women in her family are very, very fertile. And so what happens is a rich man comes to town saying that he will pay whatever he must pay to marry her because he needs a young, fertile wife to prolong his bloodline. Ramita is previously engaged to someone. Are they fully engaged? They've been like intended to one another. So that leads us to like a young love conflict that has to be broken up because her family just cannot turn down the amount of riches that this man is offering. And Ramita's storyline takes her from her small village and then into this like really powerful capital where she is surrounded by more magi. She ends up marrying a very, very powerful man. And we follow along that storyline of like her not knowing who she is, not understanding the language, being thrust into a new environment, and everything is just so brand new to her. I loved that storyline. And then all of the cast of characters that follow along with her as well. So many great characters that we can follow along with. I was really impressed with the female characters in this, because we do have Alaron, who is like our main male protagonist. We do have some male villains, but I feel like the story really shone with our female lead characters and the adventures that they had gone on, particularly with Ramita. I guess all in all, there's just so many good things about this story. I'm really glad we ended up picking up this book. So this was the first book that we read for my book club. And I think a lot of people, after the conclusion of this book, it had a very, very big cliffhanger ending, ended up going on to the second book already, which is called Scarlet Tides. I think this is an easily approachable fantasy story despite its scope. So I think you should give it a try. It's got a great cast of characters that you should follow along with. And I'm really excited to be able to continue on with the series. I did give this 4 out of 5 stars. If you couldn't tell from the beginning, my main issue with this was mostly from where it drew inspiration from. It just drew a little too heavy on our real world for my liking for a fantasy story, but at the end of the day, it was just really exciting and just had a lot going for it, and I think you should definitely pick it up. All right, so let me know, have you picked up Mage's Blood? What did you think of it? Particularly my book club members. I think you've been waiting for this video for a long time. And then if you did end up picking up book 2, don't put any spoilers on there, but I do plan on picking up book 2 probably like soon within the new year, probably not before the end of this year though. So we'll see when I get to it. If you're interested in following along with me in real time, you can follow along with me on my social media. So I'm on Twitter and Instagram. It's at whatcassread, the same as this channel. So it's super easy to find. And then you can find my Goodreads link as well as the Goodreads link for this book club listed down below for you. And you know how these videos end. I'll talk to you later. Bye.